This video contains spoilers for Star Wars The Mandalorian. If you don't want spoilers, then watch the show you must. The life of a Yoda is surrounded in an aura of mystery. Little is known of this green alien master of the Force, and even little is known of how a Yoda is actually born. I mean, it's not like Yoda gave Luke the Birds and the Bees talk on Dagobah like, when a Mommy Yoda and a Daddy Yoda love each other very much, they decide to bow chicka chicka wow chicka chicka wow chicka chicka cha. Have sex they do. So now with the release of the Disney Plus series The Mandalorian and the introduction of the cutest weirdo thing in the whole wide galaxy, I thought I'd talk about my theory as to how I believe a Yoda is born. And for those of you obsessed with saying, hey, excuse me, it's not a Yoda, stop saying it's a Yoda because Yoda was the name of the master and not the species, then I have one question for you. What is Yoda's species name then? No? No idea? You sure?
Then quit your bitching, it's your baby Yoda.
So to understand how a Yoda might be born, we need to look at what we already know. Yoda, that is the Master, lived to a good old age of 900, before becoming one with the Force, passing on the torch of Grand Master to Luke Skywalker. However, the question that lingered through the minds of Star Wars nerds was one thing. What was Yoda, truly? Was he a part of a big alien race of Yodas, or was he simply one of a kind? Where did the wise master come from? Of course, throughout the years there have been many others that have looked like Yoda that have appeared in stories in Legends or now in the expanded universe. However, in canon, we only have seen 3 Yodas within the Star Wars universe. Now, I have seen so many theories going around at the moment of the newest addition to the Yoda clan and his possible whereabouts of where he might have come from. Some say that he is the baby of Master Yoda himself, that during the time before the Clone Wars, bearing in mind after serving nearly 900 years with the Order, finally decided to,
go slap some alien cheeks I must, thrust my lightsaber into some booty I will.
To be honest, this theory is just nonsense, as let's be fair, the Jedi were a radical cult of Force users who believed that you were not allowed to feel any emotions that could lead you to the path of the dark side, so lust and wanting to get your lightsaber turned on was well out of the question within the Order. So why would the Grand Master be any exception to this rule? If your own leader can't keep it in his pants, then the whole Order's just gonna fall apart. In my opinion, this theory is just a very funny joke between the fans, so I would say this theory hasn't got any weight to it. However, a theory that could be possible is the fact that this baby is the last of the Yoda species, explaining as to why there are a lack of parents when the Mandalorian finds the baby on his mission. Who knows, maybe the parents got fed up with him and sent him away like some Star Wars Superman baby to find a better life somewhere safe in the galaxy. Like I said, this would of course explain the lack of parents for the young baby Yoda. However, if this was the case, then they've really done a lousy job at keeping him safe. But like most theories, this theory was the starting point for my own theory as to where I think Baby Yoda comes from, and I would like to think it keeps in line with the whole mystery of Yoda and his species and such. My starting point for this was the thought of a planet full of Yodas. But this is where I came across my first problem. Let me explain. If the baby Yoda was the last of his species, then something must have happened to their planet, as the baby is only 50 years old. Now, during this time, in all of the books and in all of the movies, even after the Disney merger, there is nothing that appears to link Yoda to a planet or a place of origin, let alone the mention of a destruction of his species or planet. So that's problem 1. Problem 2 is you have to remember that this was before Episode 1. This was when the Jedi were at the height of their power. The Sith hadn't been seen in over 1,000 years, and the Jedi had full freedom to roam wherever they wanted in the galaxy. They also had Jedi Seekers that were told to go into the universe and find Force-sensitive children to bring them back to the Jedi Temple to train them in drinking the Kool-Aid and becoming a Jedi. Now, if Yoda had a planet, wouldn't you think the Jedi would have been to this planet many times and had children from that planet training as younglings? Yes, they may have been younglings for some time due to their slow aging process, but then again, if you have 900 years to master the Force, then a little extra training would go a long way. But this is the problem. There are no other younglings of the same species anywhere throughout the films. The only other Yoda that appears at this time is Yaddle. Yet for some reason we don't see any Council of Yodas in the Republic Senate. why would Yoda and Yaddle be the only ones? Also, skipping to the time of the Galactic Empire, wouldn't it make sense for the Empire to target Yoda's planet as a place of interest for Force sensitives? I mean, all you would have to do is just send Vader and his Inquisitors to the planet, forcefully take a group of children and turn them into Inquisitors. Who knows, if they even became strong enough, they may have even rendered Vader obsolete. And what wouldn't be better than to have an army of dark side Yodas at your disposal with an average life of 900 years between them? You could rule for centuries. So with all this now in mind, I propose the theory that Yoda never actually had a species. In fact, I propose he never even had a planet. You see, with all the points I've raised, to me it just didn't make sense to where a species like Yoda could fit into the Star Wars universe without contradicting the current canon. Now let's ask the question again, where does a Yoda come from? Well, if we look at life in general, the majority of life is a male and a female coming together to reproduce offspring into the universe. But I think a Yoda isn't born of a natural birth, not in the sense that we are commonly used to. Skipping ahead now to 900 years, when Yoda became one with the Force, he left this world physically, but not mentally. He remained alive in the form of a Force ghost. So what if it was full circle? What if Yoda was born into the universe by just simply appearing? We've already seen that the Force is capable of giving life, like with Anakin Skywalker, even if that was forced by Sidious. But what if the Force naturally birthed life into the universe, and as a result that birth was a Yoda? Now you're probably wondering as well, what's the reason for that? It just seems bizarre for a baby to suddenly appear. But wouldn't that be the point? The Force at some random point, some random place in the galaxy, a Yoda just simply popped into existence? Just imagine this, you're sat in the middle of Mos Eisley Cantina, drinking a cold glass of blue milk when all of a sudden a small green baby is found next to you crying its eyes out. I mean, apart from scaring you half to death, it would be a totally random surprise and leaving you thinking, where the hell did this thing come from?
But Luke, wouldn't that mean that the Force was just popping out Yodas left, right, and center?
Not necessarily. The best way I can describe it is imagine every Pokemon game. In Pokemon, you meet hundreds of different Pokemon. Now imagine in this scenario, the Pokemon that you meet in the wild represents the galaxy of life that we already know. Human, Mon Calamari, Trandoshan, that sort of thing. However, when it comes to shiny Pokemon, you have a 1 in 8,000 chance of meeting a shiny Pokemon in the wild. So imagine this with a Yoda just like a shiny Pokemon. Imagine that the birth of a Yoda is a 1 in 8 million or even 8 billion chance of happening. It would mean you could go through your entire life without coming into contact with one, still making Yoda's species a complete mystery. It would also make sense as to why the baby was on his own for so long with no parents. In my opinion, I feel it's though the Force is entrusting the growth of the baby to other creatures, as the majority of people that we've seen so far within the Mandalorian seem to have an interest in taking care of the baby, or making sure no harm comes to it. For example, the sniper in episode 4. The sniper has a clear shot of the baby Yoda with his sniper. However, it almost seems to me like he's hesitating, like he can't take the shot. He had a perfect shot before, yet he seems to not utilize that and exterminate the baby Yoda. His hesitation also leaves it open to being shot in the back. I mean, if he was one of the best bounty hunters able to track the Yoda, wouldn't you think he'd want to take the shot as quickly as possible? Just in case it was being protected by these people? I mean, there's already a Mandalorian standing there, he could have had backup. It makes me think that maybe the Force is trying to keep the baby alive, and something about it stops nearly everyone from bringing harm to it. Yes, people might want to go after the baby and take the baby and wreak some kind of reward, but they don't want to hurt it. This is of course minus droids who for obvious reasons don't have a connection to the Force. Obviously that's why the IG unit was able to almost kill the baby, because it didn't have that connection to the Force, it didn't have that maternal instinct. Again, with all of this works perfectly into our story of the Mandalorian. Again, if there was a planet of Yodas, wouldn't it just make sense to go there, grab a few children, But in this scenario, it means that the birth of Yoda is so rare that when one finally comes to be found, it means the people who want it the most are going to throw everything of value they have into capturing or exterminating this such high valuable target. It seems to me that this is the reason why our good old friends the Empire are trying to find it and keep it alive. Now let's jump back to Return of the Jedi. More specifically towards Battlefront 2. Now through that story we actually learn that after the Emperor's death, he had in place a series of contingency plans that certain Imperial officers would carry out in the event of the Emperor's death. Now of course these were on a need-to-know basis, meaning if you didn't need to know it, then guess what, you weren't going to know about it. These ranged from a number of things, from the destruction of an Imperial loyalist colony to a small one-man team destroying his own personal vault. So what if one of his plans was to catch and experiment on a baby Yoda? Now let's jump back even further, well before the events of Episode 1. If you think about it, before the Emperor was even Chancellor at this point, he already knew of the existence of Yoda, seeing as he worked rather closely with the Jedi before and during the Clone Wars. It wouldn't be too far-fetched to think that he could have even asked the Jedi Master of his origins, wanting to know more about his species. So I believe he learned of Yoda's birth, or simply appearing as a result of the Force, and of course, knowing that he wouldn't stand a chance in hell in converting Yoda to the dark side, he possibly set his sights on taking the Force, quite literally, into his own hands, and trying to create the ultimate apprentice for himself. Of course, Palpatine, being the strongest dark side user and the only Sith at this point, would have most likely wanted to try replicate the birth of a Yoda. So I believe Sidious did try to do this, but failed in doing so because quite simply, he just wasn't the Force itself, only a Force user. However, even though he couldn't make a Yoda, he could in fact make a child by regular birth. Hence why he went about creating Anakin Skywalker and biding his time until the young boy was old enough to turn to the dark side and become his ultimate apprentice. But as we all know, due to Return of the Jedi, this of course failed and the Emperor died as a result of his creation. But I'm pretty sure he might have always wanted a baby Yoda to corrupt or use for his grand plan. Hence why when our story begins in The Mandalorian, rumours of a baby Yoda are currently going around the underworld of smugglers and bounty hunters, possibly not so much talking about a baby Yoda, but saying of a green alien species. Of course, word gets to an Imperial scientist in hiding who is well aware of the Emperor's contingency plan to secure this Yoda for experimentation. The scientist enlists the help of an ex-regional governor of the Empire to help him find and capture this creature. However, the scientist tells the governor it needs to be alive. So with what remaining power he has, the governor puts out the word that there is a huge bounty going for an unknown creature to be captured. The governor, being a true politician, tells all bounty hunters that he understands that bounty hunting can be a problematic profession, so he gives the ultimatum that the target can be terminated if need be for a lesser reward. Of course, this is unknown to the scientist. Also something to consider here is that maybe this child could also have something to do with the Emperor being resurrected in The Rise of Skywalker. Could it be that he was needing a creature so strong in the Force like Yoda to be able to forcefully regenerate himself, even possibly regenerating into a newer body, that he may be able to continue his work after ruling the galaxy? Now also, one final thing I really want to cover before finishing this is going back to the question I asked before. What is a Yoda's purpose, and why is one born? If a Yoda has a 1 in 8 billion chance, then that's rare. 2 in one lifetime, then that's super rare. But 3 all within the space of 1,000 years? That's insane. But I believe there is a reason for it, and I believe that a Yoda's purpose is to be the purest form of the Force. You see, the Star Wars sequels, The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, seem to be focused on the fact the Force is out of balance. The Jedi are too far in the light, whereas the Sith are too far in the dark. There's no in-between. So what if a Yoda is meant to be the balance? A representation as a whole, both the light and the dark side of the Force. You see, Yoda was born 896 BBY, just after the Sith vanished. Yaddle was born 509 BBY when the Jedi was still in power, and Baby Yoda of course was born 35 BBY, still at the height of the Jedi's power. But what if each Yoda was born due to the others failing to bring balance to the Force? You see, the Force is the Force. Be it light or dark, it is still all the Force. So if a Yoda is born to be the purest form of the Force, then wouldn't its purpose be to embrace both the light and the dark side? So Force users can understand both sides and embrace the Force fully, and hopefully, if a Yoda is the purest form of the Force, maybe, just maybe, that could bring balance to the Force. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. Okay, I'm not going to copy Matt Pat. Please don't sue me, Matt Pat. But hey, that's my theory for the life of a Yoda. But now I'm going to pass the question on to you. What do you think of this theory? Do you think this theory actually holds up? Do you think it still holds mystery towards the Yoda species? Do you think it is plausible within the Star Wars universe? Or do you have another theory? Then hey, why not leave your comment down in the comment section down below? Of course, I'm looking forward to seeing how The Mandalorian pans out, and I hope it's going to be an interesting eye-opener for Yoda species as a whole. But like I said, the training Jedi ball is now in your court, so let me know what you guys think down below. But as always guys, I am terrible with outros. I shall see you all in the next video, but until then, may the Force be with you, always.